level of security. And I've been consistent in my direction to the Secret Service to provide him with every resource, capability, and protective measure necessary to ensure his continued safety. Second, I've directed the head of the Secret Service to review all security measures for the Republican National Convention, which is scheduled to start tomorrow. And third, I've directed an independent review of the national security at yesterday's rally to assess exactly what happened. And we'll share the results of that independent review with the American people as well. And finally, I'll be speaking more about this tonight at greater length from the Oval Office. We must unite as one nation. We must unite as one nation to demonstrate who we are. And so may God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, when you spoke to President Trump yesterday, what did you tell him and what did he tell you, sir?
Mr. President, shifting your campaign strategy, Mr. President, do you regret?
And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Back on with the CNN News 18 exclusive, ladies and gentlemen, and it's confirmation of a story that we broke back nearly a year ago. An American drone strike killed Ayman al-Zawahiri, key plotter of the 9/11 terrorist attacks in 2022. Now, he had taken over as the leader of the al-Qaeda after Osama bin Laden's death and was at a safe house in Kabul. Zawahiri was number 2 in al-Qaeda when the group conducted the September 11 terror attacks, and American officials considered him a central plotter. 2 years since al-Zawahiri was eliminated, some startling details are now emerging about how he was taken down. The US State Department confirmed this week that the Taliban is currently holding 3 of their citizens in their custody, including a man named Mahmood Habibi. Now, he is key to unraveling the mystery of Zawahiri's killing and how it was orchestrated. Let's tell our viewers who Mahmood Habibi is. Mahmood Habibi is a US passport holder of Afghan origin and owned a Kabul-based telecommunications company. He was also the former deputy chief of Afghanistan's aviation authority. His company's office was in al-Zawahiri's neighborhood. The Taliban has so far refused to acknowledge that they are holding Habibi captive. They had earlier confirmed that only 2 members are there. They never talked about this third, that is Habibi. But Americans believe that he was detained on 10th of August along with 29 other employees of the ARX Communications, the firm he owned. Taliban believes that Habibi's company was involved in the targeting of former al-Qaeda senior leader Zawahiri. The US administration has made it public now, but CNN News 18 had told you this about a year ago. Afghanistan's former Vice President Amrullah Saleh, who spoke to News 18 exclusively from an undisclosed location last October, had his suspicions about Habibi and his role in Zawahiri's killing. In his first interview in almost 2 years to any publication around the world, Amrullah Saleh had told News 18 that there was an agreement between the US Central Intelligence Agency, or the CIA, and Pakistan's ISI and the Haqqanis on the al-Qaeda However, there was no discussion on the fate of al-Zawahiri per se. He even detailed out how the US found Zawahiri. The Taliban had promised in 2020 Doha agreement on terms of US withdrawal from Afghanistan that they would not harbor al-Qaeda members. But al-Zawahiri stayed on in Kabul, in an area which was home to the foreign embassies and diplomats under the previous administration. Amrullah Saleh believed that the then US went around the Taliban and found Zawahiri's location through Mahmood Habibi. And according to Saleh, Taliban reached Habibi's firm and detained him. US is believed to be in secret negotiations with the Taliban over his release, but Habibi is a high-value hostage for the Taliban. Joining us now, live here on The Right Stand, former Afghanistan Vice President Amrullah Saleh. Mr. Saleh, namaste and thank you for joining us. First up, in October when we spoke, you had told us that Mahmood Habibi is the man who killed al-Zawahiri. Now the US has confirmed that. Your take?
When I spoke to you last year, I said that the United States was suppressing the details of the al-Zawahiri killing and the whole story because the man who helped the United States get to al-Zawahiri is in the Taliban custody. So the story you put out last year, which in a way United States is now confirming today, reveals several aspects. Aspect number one, the Taliban to this very date, they deny that al-Zawahiri was killed. So today it is now publicly acknowledged that yes, al-Zawahiri was killed and the man who helped the United States locate him is in our custody. Number two, it also shows that the United States diplomacy in regards to Afghanistan and in regards to a quote-unquote engagement with the Taliban on the question of counterterrorism is full of flaws, and it's not as straight as they are trying to say it is, or trying to convince the people it is. So that shows significant weakness of the Biden administration. The disclosure of identity of Habibi today is a massive slap on the face of Biden administration's counterterrorism policy. And the third aspect of this story is, you see, the Taliban are negotiating with United States for an exchange of prisoners, and also they have demanded a very hefty ransom. So the question arises, the United States has been paying $40 to $80 million to the Taliban per week. According to this is based on the secret annexes of the Doha agreement. So one has to ask this, in this situation, what are we seeing? Is the Taliban a geopolitical tool, a geopolitical instrument for some secret policy, for some secret project in the region? If they are not, then why the U.S. is paying them $80 million a week? And in the meantime, the Taliban have the key collaborator against al-Zawahiri in custody. This is complicated, and I think this is going to hurt Biden administration for very right reasons.
Well, the other aspect is about the involvement of the Haqqanis. This entire region, the Shirpur area, Mr. Saleh, isn't this the place where Sirajuddin Haqqani was staying with absolutely foolproof security, and Zawahiri was not so far away? So is it possible that the Haqqanis could have been involved?
You see, what I am saying is there is a reward money for Siraj Haqqani. And Siraj appeared, more public after the killing of al-Zawahiri. Is he a collaborator with the CIA? All the circumstantial evidence and logical evidence suggest so, that he's a collaborator. And otherwise, how come they killed al-Zawahiri? $1 million reward for his head. But they spare another guy whose worth is $10 million. I mean, according to the U.S. Department of Justice or Department of State, I don't know. That aspect is not very important. The importance I attach to this whole developing story is the hypocrisy, the betrayal, the backstabbing of the Afghan people, and saying the collapse of the republic was due to corruption or etc., etc.
Right.
Whereas we are seeing right now that the U.S. has recruited the Taliban as a secret ally. And this secret ally is fragmented in its ways of engagement with the U.S. Bits of it is in collaboration with Washington. Bits of this group is not fully in the picture.
Aligned to them, yeah.
But still, United States is subsidizing them with $40 to $80 million a week. That is where I'm fixated on. That what we hear about the Doha Agreement, the fact that it was the fault of the Afghan Republic, which did not embrace the process as it should have, that is an entirely falsehood. It's wrong. What is becoming clear that there was secret negotiations involving future collaboration between United States and the Taliban. It did involve counter-terrorism operations,
Right.
particularly against groups which threaten the interest of the United States, not the interest of other countries in the region. That is very important. So the U.S. does not necessarily see regional terror groups as a threat to its national security or to its national interest in the region. So that is where I'm fixated. But I also want to reiterate that we were right. Our sources were right. Our access was real. And I want to thank your channel, CNN 18, for giving it the coverage at the time when it happened.
No, we thank you for your good words and kind words, Mr. Saleh. But do you think this Pak, Afghan, Taliban, America, are they still working together in Afghanistan? Because Bin Laden was kept there, most of the leaders were not aware, and suddenly one fine day the CIA comes and takes him out.
You see, let us call Project Extremism a project. I mean, radical groups and extremist groups have been pawns in the geopolitical game in the past 30, 40 years, to say the least. And Pakistan has been a hub for training, empowering, sponsoring these groups over the past 40 years. And within the society of Pakistan, you see the consensus is faltering. It's falling apart. There is a segment of the Pakistani society who are saying that this is not going to be a savior of Pakistan from massive problems we are facing. We should get rid of it, and Pakistan should become a responsible state. The fallout from sponsorship of radicalism and terrorism is too high and too costly for the society and for a state in Pakistan. But we do not see this voice being reflected in the views of the deep state and the establishment in Pakistan. They still support extremist groups, and they are not attacking them as they should. So your question is I had a theory that how al-Qaeda was to be dismantled, in a secret collaboration between CIA, ISI, and the Taliban. Is it still holding out? I don't have fresh information, but I think it is not functioning as it was envisioned to function.
Got it.
Because when al-Zawahiri was killed, then you have this spike of TTP attacks against Pakistan, and United States is not willing to assist Pakistan as the Pakistanis wish, because let's not forget that yes, United States betrayed the Afghan people and they backstabbed the Afghan Republic, but they also understand that over 2,400 Americans who were killed in Afghanistan, they were killed by IEDs manufactured with direct assistance from Pakistan Army. So they understand the hypocrisy and the double face of the Pakistan Army and the type of warmth in their relationship which existed in 80s and 90s is not there.
It's not the same.
So we wish revelations like what we see in the media today will bring up one very major and important subject. That terrorism in all form and shape should be bad. We should get rid out of the era that there are good terrorists, bad terrorists.
You're very right, and
Zawahiri
Prime Minister
bad,
Narendra Modi
but
has been speaking about that.
Lashkar-e-Taiba is good, Taliban is good, but TTP is bad. They are all bad.
Yes,
So,
we can't have that.
the
But Mr.
color
Saleh,
of
I just quickly want to ask you this. 1 year after CNN News 18 did the story, you spoke to us. There is finally, it's not just traction, some notice being taken. The world is recognizing this. Thank you for that. But do you believe it's better late than never?
Well, I mean, let me jokingly tell you, Jesus became Jesus 70 years after he was crucified. So sometimes it takes for the truth to come out late.
Fair point, Mr. Amrullah Saleh. Thank you for speaking with us. So nearly a year after we did the story, ladies and gentlemen, there is now confirmation that it was a betrayal from within that accounted for Ayman al-Zawahiri. What will this now do? Will this perhaps destabilize Taliban? Will there be further friction as far as the equation between these three nations, America, Pakistan, Afghanistan? Where is this all heading, and what does that mean for us in this region? Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow ORF with us. Sushantji, namaste. Your quick take on this. He was very convinced at that time, and now we could hear the "I told you so" from Amrullah Saleh, but he was very effusive in his praise for us as a network. But the fact is that it could not have been done without some inputs from within. Mahmood Habibi is the man. Many believe the Taliban are now holding him.
So yeah, Anand, when Ayman al-Zawahiri was taken out, there was reason to believe that the Americans got information from the inside, because for 20 years they were hunting this guy down and they were not able to get a fix on him. And in this particular case, within a couple of weeks actually, of the Taliban taking over, they were able to get rid of Ayman al-Zawahiri.
Correct.
So there was a lot of talk whether this was some kind of a bargain between the Taliban, some peace offering to the Americans, because Ayman al-Zawahiri was seen as somebody who was simply not ready to compromise, very hardline, and it was easy to get rid of him through the Americans. That was the conspiracy theory. But so while those suspicions were very much there, it was very difficult to understand or figure out who exactly might have leaked this. Now, some of this came out during the recent Doha negotiations, when the Taliban approached the Americans and said that, look, we have a couple of your hostages, so how about some kind of a hostage swap? And I think this kind of talk where they acknowledge, because everybody was a little surprised that which are these American hostages the Taliban are talking about, although they did not mention Habibi in that.
Yes.
It was the other
They mentioned
guys.
two. Yeah.
They were speaking about two guys, but I think that kind of led on to further revelations of what exactly was happening behind the scenes. So clearly now we probably have got a good idea of who the guy was who gave this information out. But the Taliban have arrested him. So frankly, if they've kept him in custody, it means that they haven't really burned their bridges with the al-Qaeda. And al-Qaeda, although is not allowed or not given the space to do kinetic operations, the al-Qaeda is carrying out its global propaganda, it is believed, sitting in Afghanistan. So that much is very much happening, and we all know about it. But beyond that, I think it is still shrouded in mystery. Do the Taliban will have problems going forward? We'll have to wait and see. There are also reports of problems within the Taliban ranks, though probably those are more political than anything else. Maybe a bit of a power struggle as well within the Taliban. But we'll have to wait and see whether, that's just something which is normal in any big organization, or it is something which will lead to, in the typical Afghan way, to very fractious kind of a relationship, and finally, some kind of an internecine warfare within the Taliban. So we'll have to wait and see how that figures out. But at the same time, the Taliban are also they've closed their ranks against the ISIS.
Yes.
Because the ISKP presence is there. The Taliban have made no bones about the fact that they will not countenance any kind of a challenge to their rule, which is what ISKP is doing. So they are going after them with a vengeance. And at the same time, they've kept some of the local groups like the TTP and all alive, because they actually give them leverage. If you have to keep the Pakistanis in line, then you have to play the game that the Pakistanis have played with so many countries. So they keep the TTP as a leverage, they give TTP space, they pull them back at times. So that is the kind of stuff which is happening in Afghanistan. The one point where I am a little confused when Mr. Saleh mentions about the $80 million or thereabouts, which the Americans, he claims, is giving to the Taliban. I wonder if this is part of the Taliban or the Afghan, foreign exchange reserves, which were in US banks. And then there was some kind of a deal which was worked out that half of it would be kept for reparations for people, who suffered during 9/11.
Right.
And the other half would be given under certain supervision to Taliban for humanitarian welfare. I would imagine that this is that money which is being given to the Taliban. I don't think this is any kind of an extortion money or some kind of, protection money. Paid to the Taliban. So that is very much underway. But I think at the end of the day, we'll have to wait and see whether the Taliban are willing to come down, from some of the very hardline stunts that they have taken.
Yes.
Unlike, it doesn't look likely right now. But if they don't do it, I think the American position, at least under the current administration, is that if the Taliban are not going to be ready to compromise on certain basic things, then, there's no way that they can be rehabilitated in the international community. But that is not stopping other countries, including India, from engaging with the Taliban.
Engaging with them, yeah.
So that's all.
Yeah.